Emery loved the quiet. Living in Aurora Heights, a town where nothing much ever happened, had its perks: endless starry skies, serene nights, and an unhurried life. It was perfect for an amateur astronomer like her. Most nights, she perched on her roof with her telescope, mapping the stars and letting her thoughts drift. But tonight was different. Tonight, the sky cracked open. A streak of light cut through the heavens, slow and deliberate, its fiery tail leaving an afterimage on her retinas. She sat up straighter, her telescope forgotten. The object was descending, not like a shooting star, but controlled, purposeful. It disappeared beyond the tree line at the edge of the forest, a distant thud breaking the night's silence. Her heart raced. This was no ordinary phenomenon. Throwing on a jacket and grabbing her flashlight, Emery made her way toward the woods, the thrill of discovery overriding any sense of caution. The crater was smaller than she expected, but its presence was undeniable. Smoke curled upward from the scorched ground, the air heavy with the tang of burned metal. She took cautious steps forward, her flashlight cutting through the haze. And then she saw it. Standing at the edge of the crater was a figure, tall and lithe, their silhouette outlined by the glow of the smoldering earth. They turned slowly, revealing features that were almost human but impossibly flawless. Their silver hair shimmered even in the dim light, and their violet eyes glowed faintly, locking onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You shouldn't be here," they said, their voice smooth but edged with an authority that made her pause. Emery tightened her grip on the flashlight. "I could say the same to you. Crashing into Earth isn't exactly normal." The corner of their mouth twitched, a movement so subtle it might have been her imagination. "Your presence here is unnecessary. Leave." The way they said leave wasn't a command but a warning. Emery crossed her arms, refusing to back down. "And miss the chance to meet my first alien? Not a chance." Their eyes narrowed, but they didn't move. Something about them seemed off. Not hostile, but guarded. She took a step closer and they mirrored her movement backward, their posture tense. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice softer now. "What are you doing here?" They hesitated, their expression unreadable. Finally, they said, "I am called Arqaryn. This place is not safe, for either of us." "Arqaryn," she repeated, tasting the name. "I'm Emery. Nice to meet you, I guess." Arqaryn didn't reply. Instead, they looked skyward, their violet eyes scanning the heavens. "They will come soon." "Who's they?" Emery pressed, her curiosity overtaking her fear. Arqaryn turned to her, their gaze sharp. "The ones who pursue me. You should leave." A low hum began to vibrate in the air. Arqaryn stiffened, their glowing eyes darting toward the horizon. "It's too late." Emery barely had time to register the words before the hum became a deafening roar. A beam of light pierced the darkness, descending rapidly toward the forest. Arqaryn grabbed her wrist with a grip that was firm but not painful. "We must go," they said urgently. "Go where?" Emery asked, stumbling as they pulled her into a run. "Anywhere but here." They sprinted through the trees with a speed that seemed unnatural. Emery struggled to keep up, her breath coming in short gasps. Behind them, the beam of light touched down and the hum grew louder. She risked a glance back and froze. The craft was unlike anything she'd ever seen. Sleek and dark, it hovered above the ground, its surface rippling like liquid metal. Lights flickered along its edges, casting eerie shadows across the trees. "Keep moving," Arqaryn shouted, pulling her forward. They emerged from the forest onto a dirt road. Arqaryn slowed, their heads snapping toward the craft as it began to move, following their trail. "They're tracking me," they said, more to themselves than to her. "I cannot outrun them." Emery's mind raced. "What do they want with you?" "Nothing you need to concern yourself with." "That's not an answer." Before Arqaryn could respond, the craft shot forward, cutting off their escape. Emery gasped as a hatch opened, and figures emerged, tall humanoid shapes clad in armor that glowed faintly. They moved with a precision that was unnerving, their weapons aimed squarely at Arqaryn. Arqaryn veteran, one of them said, their voice metallic and cold. Surrender. Arqaryn stepped in front of Emery, their posture rigid. No, I cannot do that. You have violated the accord, the figure replied. Your presence here endangers this world. Stand down. Arqaryn's hand moved and a pulse of energy crackled to life in their palm. Leave now or face the consequences. The tension was suffocating. Emery's heart pounded as the armed figures raised their weapons. She didn't know what was happening, but she knew one thing. She couldn't stand by and do nothing. Wait, she shouted, stepping forward despite Arqaryn's protests. There's no need for violence. The armored figures hesitated, their weapons wavering. One of them tilted their head as if studying her. A human, they said, their tone laced with disdain. You align yourself with this traitor? Traitor? Emery repeated, glancing at Arqaryn. What did you do? Arqaryn didn't answer, their focus remaining on the figures. Leave her out of this, she has nothing to do with me. She does now, the leader said. Any who aid you are complicit. Before Emery could react, the leader raised their weapon. Arqaryn moved faster than her eyes could follow, pulling her behind them as the weapon discharged. A burst of light shot past them, striking a tree and sending splinters flying. Arqaryn's energy pulse flared brighter. You were warned. The next moments were a blur. Arqaryn launched the pulse toward the figures, who scattered to avoid it. They moved with a fluidity that was almost hypnotic, their motions a perfect blend of defense and offense. Emery ducked, behind a tree, her heart pounding as the battle unfolded. Stay down, Arqaryn shouted, their voice cutting through the chaos. Emery clutched the bark, her mind racing. She had no idea what she'd stumbled into, but one thing was clear. Arqaryn was in danger, and so was she. When the dust settled, the forest was eerily silent. The armored figures lay motionless, their weapons shattered. Arqaryn stood in the clearing, their shoulders heaving as they caught their breath. Emery stepped out cautiously. Are you okay? Arqaryn turned to her, their violet eyes dimmer than before. I told you to leave. And I told you I'm not going anywhere, she replied, crossing her arms. What's going on, Arqaryn? Why are they after you? They hesitated, their gaze dropping to the ground. It is complicated. I've got time, Emery said, her voice firm, and apparently so do you. For the first time, Arqaryn's expression softened. You are peculiar, human. Thanks. Now start talking. Arqaryn sighed, their shoulders slumping. Very well. But know this. Your life will never be the same. Emery met their gaze, her determination unwavering. It already isn't. The clearing was quiet now, the shattered remains of the armored figures glowing faintly in the moonlight. Emery stood her ground, her pulse still racing from the fight. Arqaryn's words echoed in her mind. Your life will never be the same. Start talking, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos she'd just witnessed. Arqaryn sighed, running a hand through their silver hair. The faint glow in their violet eyes had dimmed, but their presence was no less commanding. What do you want to know? How about everything? Why are you on Earth? Who were those people? And why do I suddenly feel like the entire universe is out to get me? Arqaryn hesitated, their gaze shifting to the horizon. It is not a simple story, Emery. But you deserve some answers. They gestured for her to sit. And though the forest floor was damp and littered with debris, Emery lowered herself onto a fallen log. Arqaryn remained standing, their posture tense as they began to speak. I am not supposed to be here, they said, their tone heavy with regret. My people, the Zalari, enforce strict boundaries between our worlds and yours. Contact with humans is forbidden under the Accord, a treaty that has maintained peace for centuries. Emery frowned. Then why are you here? Arqaryn's lips pressed into a thin line. Because the Accord is flawed. It serves only those in power, leaving countless others to suffer. I could no longer stand by and do nothing. What kind of suffering? Emery pressed. There are those among my People who are deemed unworthy, defective by our ruler's standards. They are cast out, abandoned on desolate worlds where survival is nearly impossible. I sought to expose this injustice, but my actions were labeled treason. Emery's heart clenched. She'd always thought of aliens as advanced and enlightened beings, but Arqaryn's story sounded all too familiar. So you're a fugitive? Yes, Arqaryn admitted, their gaze steady. And those who pursue me are enforcers of the Accord. They will stop at nothing to capture me. Emery leaned back, her mind racing. And Earth? Why come here? Your planet is unique, Arqaryn said, their tone softening. Despite your flaws, humans possess a resilience and creativity that is unparalleled. I believed I could find refuge here, among your kind. And instead, you found me, Emery said, a hint of a smile tugging at her lips. Arqaryn's expression remained serious. Yes, and now you are entangled in my conflict, a conflict that may put you in grave danger. Emery shrugged. Danger seems to be a recurring theme tonight, but I'm not about to abandon you, Arqaryn, not after everything you've told me. Their violet eyes met hers, and for a moment, the tension in their posture seemed to ease. You are unusual for a human, so I've been told, she said with a smirk. Now what's the plan? Arqaryn's plan turned out to be a hasty retreat to a safe house they'd established on the outskirts of town. The structure was hidden beneath an abandoned warehouse, accessible only through a concealed hatch. Inside, Emery was surprised to find a space that was both functional and strangely cozy. The walls were lined with strange devices that hummed softly, their purposes a mystery to her. A sleek console dominated one corner, its screen displaying a series of symbols and graphs she couldn't decipher. Despite the alien technology, there was a human touch, a worn leather armchair, a stack of books, and even a pot of plants that looked suspiciously like earth ferns. This is not what I expected, Emery admitted, taking in her surroundings. It is modest, Arqaryn said, their tone almost apologetic. But it has served me well. Emery approached the console, her curiosity piqued. What's all this for? Monitoring, Arqaryn replied. I have been tracking the Enforcers' movement since I arrived. They are relentless, but this place has remained undetected. Until now. What changed? She asked. Arqaryn hesitated. You. Emery blinked. Me? They were not aware of my location until our encounter at the crater. Your presence may have triggered their sensors. Guilt pricked at her, but she pushed it aside. Well, then it's a good thing I'm here. You're going to need backup. Arqaryn's expression was unreadable. You are brave, Emery. Perhaps too brave. I'll take that as a compliment. The hours passed in tense silence as Arqaryn worked at the console, their hands moving with fluid precision over the controls. Emery watched from the armchair, her mind racing with questions she wasn't sure she wanted answers to. Finally, she broke the silence. What happens if they find us? They will attempt to capture me, Arqaryn said without looking up. And they will eliminate any witnesses. Great, Emery muttered. So what's stopping them? Arqaryn's lips curved into a faint smile. Me. The confidence in their tone was reassuring, but Emery couldn't shake the feeling that they were underestimating the Enforcers. Do you always handle things alone? It is safer that way. For you, maybe, she countered, but not for me. If we're in this together, we need a better plan than hope for the best. Arqaryn's gaze softened. You are remarkably persistent. I prefer resourceful, Emery said with a grin. Now, what do we need to do? Their first priority was securing the safe house. Arqaryn showed Emery how to activate the protective shields, a shimmering barrier that cloaked the entrance in an illusion of solid rock. The technology was far beyond anything she'd ever seen, but she caught on quickly, her natural curiosity driving her to ask endless questions. Arqaryn answered patiently, though they often seemed bemused by her enthusiasm. For someone on the run, They had a surprising sense of calm, as if they were used to navigating impossible situations. By the time they finished, dawn was breaking over the horizon. Emery sat on the floor, her back against the wall as Arqaryn leaned against the console, their violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "You never answered my question," she said, breaking the silence. "Which one?" Arqaryn asked, their tone light. "What happens if we fail?" They hesitated, their gaze distant. "Failure is not an option." "That's not an answer," Emery pointed out. Arqaryn sighed. "If they capture me, they will extract what they need. My knowledge, my memories, and they will leave nothing behind." The weight of their words settled over her like a shroud. "Then we won't let that happen." Arqaryn's eyes met hers, their expression unreadable. "You are a curious creature, Emery. You do not fear the unknown." "Oh, I'm terrified," she admitted. "But fear doesn't change anything. Action does." For the first time, Arqaryn's lips curved into a genuine smile. It was brief, but it was enough to send a spark of warmth through her chest. "Then we act," they said, and together they began to plan. The days that followed tested Emery's resolve in ways she hadn't anticipated. Arqaryn's safe house, though hidden and secure, became a crucible for her newfound alliance with the enigmatic alien fugitive. Every moment brought new challenges, new revelations, and a growing bond that neither of them could ignore. Emery woke each morning to the faint hum of alien machinery and the sight of Arqaryn poring over their console. They rarely slept, their focus unyielding as they tracked the movements of the enforcers. She admired their dedication, though it left her feeling like a bystander in her own life. That was until the third morning when Arqaryn abruptly pushed back from the console, their expression unreadable. "They've found us." Emery shot to her feet. "What? How?" Arqaryn's fingers danced over the controls, pulling up a series of glowing symbols and shifting diagrams. "A patrol ship entered the atmosphere last night. They are scanning the area with advanced sensors. Our cloaking shield will not hold for long." "What do we do?" Emery asked, her voice steady, despite the surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We leave," Arqaryn said simply. "This location is compromised. We must find another refuge." "Just like that?" Emery's frustration bubbled to the surface. "You've been building this place for months and now we're supposed to abandon it?" "It is a calculated sacrifice," Arqaryn replied, their tone calm but firm. "Our survival takes precedence." Emery opened her mouth to argue but stopped herself. She knew they were right. Still, the thought of running didn't sit well with her. "Fine, but we're not leaving without a plan." Arqaryn's lips curved into a faint smile. "I would expect nothing less." Their plan involved a daring escape through a network of underground tunnels that Arqaryn had prepared as a contingency. The tunnels were narrow and dimly lit, their walls lined with alien glyphs that glowed faintly, casting eerie shadows on the damp floor. Emery followed Arqaryn closely, her heart pounding in her chest. The weight of her backpack dug into her shoulders, but she refused to complain. She'd insisted on carrying supplies, knowing that Arqaryn was already burdened with the weight of their mission and their guilt. As they moved deeper into the labyrinth, Emery couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The air grew colder, and the faint hum of the glyphs seemed to take on a sinister tone. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see one of the enforcers emerging from the darkness. "Stay close," Arqaryn said, their voice low but reassuring. "These tunnels are old. Some paths are unstable." "Great," Emery muttered, "because this wasn't stressful enough already." Arqaryn chuckled softly, the sound surprisingly human. "Your humor is unusual." "I like to think it's one of my better traits," she said, her smirk cutting through the tension. "Now, where exactly are we going?" "There is a safe zone several miles from here," Arqaryn explained, "a place where even the enforcers cannot follow." "And why's that?" "You'll see." The journey was grueling, but Emery refused to complain. Arqaryn's presence, steady and calm, was both a comfort and a source of curiosity. She found herself stealing glances at them when she thought they weren't looking, studying the way their silver hair caught the faint light or the way their violet eyes seemed to glow with an inner fire. "Are you always this quiet?" she asked after hours of silence. "I prefer to listen," Arqaryn replied. "Humans reveal much when they speak." "Careful," Emery teased. "You might start sounding like one of us." Arqaryn's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Perhaps there are worse fates." Her chest tightened at the rare display of warmth. It was a small crack in the armor they wore so carefully, and it made her wonder what lay beneath. She wanted to ask, to push past the walls they'd built, but the moment was interrupted by a distant rumble. "What was that?" Emery asked, her hand instinctively going to the knife she'd tucked into her belt. Arqaryn's expression darkened. "They've found the tunnels." The rumble grew louder, and the ground beneath their feet trembled. Emery's grip on her knife tightened as she turned to Arqaryn. "We need to move now." Arqaryn nodded, their calm demeanor replaced by a sense of urgency. "This way." They led her down a side passage, their movements swift and precise. The glyphs on the walls glowed brighter as if responding to the threat, casting an otherworldly light that guided their way. Emery struggled to keep up, her heart pounding in her chest as the rumble turned into a deafening roar. "Arqaryn!" she shouted, her voice barely audible over the noise. "Keep going," they called back. "We're almost there." The passage narrowed, forcing them to move single file. Emery's breath came in short gasps as she pushed herself to keep up. She could feel the vibrations of the approaching enforcers in the air, each step driving them closer to the unknown. Finally, the passage opened into a cavernous chamber, its walls lined with shimmering crystals that pulsed with a faint blue light. In the center of the chamber stood a massive obelisk, its surface etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change before her eyes. "What is this place?" Emery asked, her voice filled with awe. "A sanctuary," Arqaryn said, their tone reverent. "The enforcers cannot enter. It is protected by a force they cannot overcome." Before Emery could respond, the rumble reached its peak, and a section of the tunnel behind them collapsed. Dust and debris filled the air, cutting off their escape route. "Well, that's one way to stop them," Emery muttered, coughing as she waved the dust away. Arqaryn approached the obelisk, their hand hovering over its surface. The patterns shifted, glowing brighter as if responding to their presence. "This place is more than a sanctuary. It is a source of power." "What kind of power?" Emery asked, her curiosity piqued. "The kind that could turn the tide of this conflict," Arqaryn said, their gaze meeting hers. "But it is not without risk." "Risk is my middle name," Emery said with a smirk. "What do we need to do?" Arqaryn's lips curved into a faint smile. "You are remarkable, Emery, truly." Her chest tightened at their words, but she pushed the feeling aside. "Save the compliments for later. Let's figure out how to use this thing." Together they began to decipher the mysteries of the obelisk, their bond growing stronger with each moment. Despite the danger that loomed, Emery couldn't help but feel a spark of hope, a hope that, for the first time, they might have a chance. 30. Air in the sanctuary felt alive, charged with an energy that Emery couldn't quite explain. The glowing obelisk hummed faintly, resonating with a rhythm that seemed to match the quickened pace of her heart. Arqaryn moved with deliberate precision, their fingers tracing the ancient glyphs etched into the crystalline surface. "What are we dealing with here?" Emery asked, her voice low but steady. She leaned against the cool stone wall, still catching her breath from their harrowing escape. "This structure," Arqaryn began, "is older than my people's arrival on Earth. It was built by a civilization, long gone, one whose power eclipsed anything the enforcers could wield." "Great," Emery said, crossing her arms. "But what does it actually do? Because if it can't get us out of here, it's not exactly helpful." Arqaryn turned, their violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. "It is not merely a tool for escape. This sanctuary amplifies thought, emotion, and intent. With the right focus, it can manifest energy strong enough to repel even the enforcers. And you can use it? Emery asked, skepticism coloring her tone. Not alone. Arqaryn's gaze lingered on her, their expression unreadable. The sanctuary requires two minds in harmony, each balancing the other. Emery felt a prickle of unease. Why do I feel like I'm about to volunteer for something dangerous? Because you are, Arqaryn replied, their lips curving into the faintest hint of a smile. But it is necessary. They spent the next several hours preparing. Arqaryn explained the process with a calm efficiency that both reassured and unnerved Emery. The sanctuary's energy was not something to be taken lightly. It responded to the deepest emotions, amplifying them into raw power. You must focus, Arqaryn said, their voice steady but firm. Fear and doubt will disrupt the connection. Trust is essential. Emery couldn't help but smirk. Trust, huh? You're asking a lot for someone who's still technically a fugitive. And yet, Arqaryn said, stepping closer, you have not walked away. The air between them seemed to shift, the charged atmosphere of the sanctuary heightening every sensation. Emery held their gaze, her smirk fading as something deeper flickered in Arqaryn's eyes, something that made her chest tighten. I guess I'm stubborn like that, she murmured, her voice softer now. Arqaryn inclined their head. Then we are well matched. The first attempt to activate the sanctuary was overwhelming. As Emery stood with her hand pressed against the obelisk, a surge of energy shot through her, bright and searing. She staggered back, gasping for breath as her vision swam. Are you all right? Arqaryn was beside her in an instant, their hand resting lightly on her shoulder. Yeah, she said, shaking her head. Just didn't expect it to feel like that. You must not resist it, Arqaryn said, their voice gentle but insistent. The sanctuary magnifies what you bring to it. If you fight, it will fight back. Emery nodded, swallowing hard. Okay, let's try again. This time she forced herself to relax, focusing on the steady rhythm of her breathing. As her hand met the cool surface of the obelisk, she felt the energy again. But this time, it was different. Less a jolt and more a gentle pull. She glanced at Arqaryn, who had placed their hand beside hers. Their eyes met, and for a moment, everything else faded. Trust me, Arqaryn said, their voice barely above a whisper. I do, Emery replied, surprised to realize she meant it. The connection grew stronger with each attempt. Emery could feel the sanctuary responding, its energy flowing through her and into Arqaryn, creating a circuit that pulsed with an almost musical rhythm. It was exhilarating and terrifying. What now? She asked, her voice steady despite the intensity of the moment. Now, Arqaryn said, their gaze locked on hers. We push. The sanctuary's energy surged, a brilliant light filling the chamber as the obelisk pulsed in time with their combined effort. Emery felt her mind stretching, reaching out into the ether as if she could touch the very fabric of the universe. It was a sensation unlike anything she had ever experienced, a heady mix of power and vulnerability. As the light intensified, a deep rumble echoed through the chamber, and the glyphs on the walls flared to life. Emery felt a sharp tug in her chest as if the sanctuary were pulling something from deep within her. Hold on, Arqaryn shouted, their voice cutting through the roar of the energy. I'm trying, Emery shot back, gritting her teeth as the pull grew stronger. Just when she thought she couldn't take it anymore, the light exploded outward in a wave of pure energy. Emery staggered back, her knees buckling as the chamber fell silent. She felt Arqaryn's arms catch her, steadying her as she struggled to stay upright. Did it work? She asked, her voice hoarse. Yes, Arqaryn said, their tone reverent. The sanctuary is active. The enforcers will not reach us here. Emery sagged against them, relief flooding through her. Good, because I don't think I could do that again. Arqaryn's lips quirked into a faint smile. You underestimate yourself. She looked up at them, her breath catching at the intensity in their gaze. For a moment, the weight of their situation faded, replaced by something warmer, something unspoken but undeniable. "Arqaryn," she began, but the words caught in her throat. "Yes?" they prompted, their voice softer now. "Nothing," she said, shaking her head. "Just thanks." They nodded, their expression unreadable, but the warmth in their eyes lingered. As Emery pulled away, she couldn't help but wonder what lay beneath the calm exterior they wore so carefully. The sanctuary had bought them time, but Emery knew it wouldn't last forever. The enforcers wouldn't give up, and the sanctuary's power, while formidable, wasn't infinite. They needed a plan, and fast. But for now, she allowed herself a moment of respite. Sitting by the glowing obelisk, she glanced at Arqaryn, who was once again engrossed in their calculations. A faint smile tugged at her lips. "Guess we make a pretty good team," she said. Arqaryn glanced up, their eyes meeting hers. "Indeed." And for the first time in weeks, Emery felt a flicker of hope. They weren't just surviving, they were fighting back, and together she was starting to believe they just might win. The sanctuary hummed with energy, its glowing glyphs casting intricate patterns across the stone walls. Emery paced near the obelisk, her mind racing as she processed Arqaryn's latest revelation. "The sanctuary isn't just a shield," Arqaryn explained, their violet eyes gleaming with urgency. "It can channel the collective will of those who believe in freedom, those who resist the enforcer's tyranny. If we amplify the signal, we can ignite that spark across the planet." "So it's not just about hiding anymore," Emery said, her voice steady despite the storm brewing inside her. "We're taking the fight to them," Arqaryn nodded. "Precisely. But the energy required to sustain such a surge will be immense." Emery stopped pacing, her gaze locking with theirs. "What's the cost?" "There is always a cost," Arqaryn said, their tone heavy. "But together, we can bear it." Hours later, as the first rays of dawn filtered through the cracks in the sanctuary walls, they were ready. The obelisk pulsed with a steady light, its resonance filling the chamber like a heartbeat. Emery stood beside Arqaryn, her hand resting on the cool surface of the crystalline structure. "Are you sure about this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Arqaryn turned to her, their expressions softer than she had ever seen. "I have never been more certain of anything." The word settled over her like a blanket, warming the cold edges of her resolve. She nodded, taking a deep breath as they began the activation sequence. The surge of energy was immediate and overwhelming. Emery felt it rush through her, a torrent of raw power that threatened to consume her. She focused on Arqaryn, their presence anchoring her as the sanctuary came alive around them. "Stay with me," Arqaryn said, their voice cutting through the roar of the energy. "I'm here," she replied, gripping their hand tightly as the obelisk flared brighter. As the energy grew, Emery could feel the sanctuary reaching out, its influence extending far beyond the chamber. It was as if the entire planet was holding its breath, waiting for a spark to ignite the flames of rebellion. "Now," Arqaryn shouted, their voice filled with urgency. Emery focused all her intent, pouring every ounce of her will into the sanctuary. She thought of the people suffering under the enforcer's rule, of the lives lost and the futures stolen. She thought of Arqaryn, of the quiet strength in their eyes, and the hope they had given her. And she thought of herself, not the woman she had been, but the one she had become. The sanctuary responded, its energy exploding outward in a blinding wave of light. Emery gasped as the connection intensified, the force of it nearly knocking her to the ground. But Arqaryn was there, their hand steadying her as the light enveloped them. "It's working," Arqaryn said, their voice filled with awe. Emery could feel it too, the sanctuary's energy spreading like wildfire, igniting a spark of resistance in every corner of the world. She could sense the shift, the collective will of humanity and Arqaryn's people coalescing into something unstoppable. When the light finally faded, the sanctuary was silent. Emery staggered back, her knees buckling as exhaustion overtook her. Arqaryn caught her, their arms wrapping around her as they sank to the ground. "Did we?" she began, her voice hoarse. Arqaryn nodded, a faint smile playing on their lips. "The signal has been sent. The world is waking up." Emery closed her eyes, a wave of relief washing over her. "We did it." "No," Arqaryn said, their tone soft but firm. "You did it. Without your strength, this would not have been possible." She opened her eyes, meeting their gaze. There was something in their expression, something raw and unguarded, that took her breath away. "Arqaryn," she said, her voice barely audible. "Yes?" Before she could second-guess herself, she leaned forward, her lips brushing against theirs in a kiss that was both tentative and electric. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, the weight of their journey melting away in the warmth of their connection. When they finally broke apart, Arqaryn's eyes were luminous, their smile soft but radiant. "Emery," they said, their voice trembling slightly. "You are extraordinary." "So are you," she replied, a grin tugging at her lips. "Guess we make a pretty good team after all." The days that followed were a blur of activity. The sanctuary signal had sparked a global uprising, uniting humans and Arqaryn's people in a way neither had thought possible. The Enforcers' grip on the planet began to crumble, their forces overwhelmed by the sheer power of collective resistance. Emery and Arqaryn became symbols of the movement, their bond a testament to the strength that came from unity and trust. Together, they led the charge, their partnership inspiring countless others to stand up and fight for their freedom. Months later, as they stood on a hill overlooking a liberated city, Emery turned to Arqaryn, a smile lighting up her face. "Did it," she said, her voice filled with quiet pride. Arqaryn nodded, their gaze soft as it rested on her. "The world is changing, Emery, and it's because of you." "Not just me," she said, reaching for their hand. "Because of us." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of their journey settling over them like a gentle breeze. Emery squeezed Arqaryn's hand, her heart full as she looked toward the horizon. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Arqaryn said, their voice warm and steady. "We build a new future, together." And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a golden glow, Emery knew that they had not just survived. They had found something worth fighting for, something worth holding on to.